Welcome to S&P's Why Not Us, the podcast that knows hope is not a strategy, but sometimes it's all you got. I'm your co-host, Scott Greenhut, and on the other side of the mic, my friend since nursery school, coming up on a half century, Peter Olczyk.
The fans are back. Thank you. I think we got some new ones there as well. It's great to be here. I brought a surprise today, actually. A box.
You brought a box.
I brought a box. It's for you.
Is it Let's Make a Deal?
It is not.
Okay.
It does go back in time. I saw it recently at my folks' apartment. I thought it would be kind of fun. I'm curious to see whether it looks familiar to you. Why don't you take a look?
I'm going to open the box. I'm going to take the deal.
Excellent.
I'm opening the box.
Careful.
We've got the Viking ship, and it looks like it was made by somebody.
Yeah. So that doesn't look familiar at all. No recollection.
Help me.
All right. So I think that's probably like circa second grade. Woodworking. Now, I'm not sure if we ever did woodworking together or not.
Probably. I took my share, so most likely we overlap someplace.
I would say generally my artwork back in the day is not great.
Right.
However, this one I feel is about kind of my A game. I mean,
it's very nice.
You know, it's got the hole. It's kind of got the narrowed front and back, if you see.
Yeah.
I'd like to think that I did some sort of sanding and sawing there, but I don't know what the original woodwork was, so I'm just, taking a shot on that one. The sail.
It's a lovely sail/mast. That's what I was going to say. It's beautiful.
It's got that red stripe. I think if I looked at pictures back then, that was kind of a bit of a thing, so I tried to do that. And then you see the shields along the side. Do you see those?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's intimidating. That's what I would say. If I saw this at real scale in the ocean, I wouldn't mess with it.
And symmetrical. I'm just saying, there's 5 on each side, so that's pretty good for me.
It's amazing.
The magic marker isn't great, but anyway, that's the best I got. So
good job by you.
If you ever want to bring in some old artwork that I may or may not recognize, please do. And with that, let's dig into some sports stuff. In today's episode, we'll dig into MLB's new ABS challenge system, get on our high horse for a couple other baseball items, and one of us will proclaim which playoffs of the major sports stands above the rest. But we're tipping off with the NBA. So here we are as we're recording. It's the last day of the NBA regular season, and not all matchups are actually set. Far from it, actually, in the East. But let's start out West. So, a few kind of notes that are out there. Steph Curry coming off of injury the other day. Looks like he's going to be playing in a play-in. Kind of curious to see how he does, whether he can actually get that team to play twice and maybe even have a shot at the 1 or 2 seed.
Yeah.
The Lakers, big roller coaster, 2 big injuries lately. We can talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah.
And then sort of the top tier, OKC, the Spurs, and arguably the Nuggets playing good ball and looking healthy. What interests you there?
I mean, what interests me is Wemby. I'm all about Wemby. I had a little sneaky bet that I took before the year on the Spurs over. Oh. I don't even do the DraftKings thing. I don't even do it. But this one, I heard the case, and I was like, oh, my God, yes. So I was a little bit in on the Spurs early. And, I mean, Wemby's unstoppable right now. I think it's going to be – I really think we could fast forward to the finals there, OKC against San Antonio, and I'm predicting a 7-game classic matchup.
We're not even going to wait till it actually happens?
No, that's my take.
No, that's good. I very much would love to see OKC and the Spurs. I also would very much like to see the Nuggets against one of those two teams in the round before. I think that would actually be extremely competitive.
Yes, of course. Denver is quite good. They've got the third best odds to come out of the conference. And then if you're looking for a sneaky good team, I mean Minnesota to me, they're just great, fun to watch, and like if there is going to be kind of an upset, I'd look for them to maybe pull it off.
Yeah. And before we move out of the West, I just want to say, Luka right now, going back to the Lakers for a second, he's in Spain. He's got a hamstring, as grade 2, so usually that's 4 to 6 weeks or so, typically.
Yeah.
He's getting PRP, reportedly getting stem cell work as well. And this is not him going rogue by any stretch. This is in coordination with the team, so from what I've read.
Right.
So I am very curious to see if he is actually able, let's call it in 10 days or so from now, to show up in that first round series, because that he's doing everything possible to try to be part of it. And I think that just adds a little bit, to kind of LeBron not trying to, win a series almost by himself.
Yes.
So with that,
the king.
Let's head to the East. As I said before, nothing is really settled right now, as in terms of like 3 through 6 in terms of seeding. But teams that are playing well, the Charlotte Hornets have been extremely hot for the last couple of months. LaMelo, Brandon Miller,
Yeah.
Con Knipple has got almost a 50-50 shot at Rookie of the Year. We'll see how that works out. And the Atlanta Hawks. That team is the one that is probably the most scary over the last few months.
On fire times as many times as you can get.
Yeah, since the Trae Young deal, which was back in January 7th, they got back actually a very professional player, CJ McCollum, who is a vet that can still shoot. He's got a great basketball IQ. Jalen Johnson is becoming a, borderline star. And Nickeil Alexander-Walker, I've watched the Hawks last couple of weeks, a couple of games. He actually played against the Knicks, which we'll get to in a second.
Yeah.
He is a wow. Creates his own shot, great shooter, high energy, fast break. Adding in Dyson Daniels, who is all about the defense, a stopper, probably first team All-D. That is a team that they almost feel like they have a Pistons vibe from last year to me. This is the team that seems that maybe they're a little bit early, but not the team that I would want to play.
Yeah, and how about Joel Embiid? Can you make this stuff up? I mean, you can't really, because he's had it all, and then of all things, appendicitis. I mean, before the playoffs start, that's almost out of a movie.
So before this all happened, the Sixers were actually pretty healthy. They had a big 3, almost maybe a big 4. You could have argued that Philly would be kind of in the Hawks as the team that maybe you didn't want to play in the first round if Joel is at his best. So I never root for injuries, and it is frustrating, I know, amongst Philly Nation that this is happening, and it's a bummer. I don't know how else to put it.
It's a bummer. I've heard 18 days is the fastest someone can come back from something like that, which puts it at the end of round 1. It's going to be a little too late. Obviously, they're up against it as it is. So that's a bummer. I guess it's time to turn to some of the high flyers in the conference, including our Knicks.
Here we go.
The Knicks, they took out the Hawks recently in Atlanta. That was encouraging, and that was back when the games were still, I think, mattering a little bit more in terms of what counted. I'd contrast that with the Celtic game at MSG. Nice win, we'll take it. Celtics resting, one of their top 2 guys, so it wasn't exactly, their full effort. So make of that what you will.
You know, in that game, just for a second, I watched it was kind of the classic Madison Square Garden game. That was a game that the Knicks needed every part of the fourth quarter, every part of the crowd kind of willing them.
Yeah.
And you don't want to rely on that, especially
No.
with against a Celtics team that was, not playing, a guy who's going to end up fifth or sixth in the MVP.
That's right. So we're up against it. The Celtics are peaking at the right time. The Celtics are annoyed from last year's result. And, there's also the number one seed that they would have to overcome, Detroit. So, I mean, it is an interesting conference.
Well, let's look at the first round for a second. So it's as we sit right here, the Knicks are likely playing Toronto. It's not set, but that's a team that the Knicks have beaten every game this year. It hasn't been too competitive.
Yes, we like it, but at the same time, that's a little worrisome. It's almost too good.
Almost too good. I talked about Atlanta before. To me, if it's Knicks versus Atlanta, it would not surprise me at all if that were a 5-game series. I'd be worried. Orlando still a possibility. That's a team the Knicks have fared well against again this year. I put that kind of similarly in the Toronto bucket. Knicks probably should win that series. It probably shouldn't be more than 4 games, but that would be what I would say. What about any X factors for the Knicks on the first round? Reserves or starters? Who are you looking at?
I mean, I think the Knicks are who the Knicks are. I mean, I will say Hart's performance against the Celtics was encouraging. So if they are going to go far, I mean, when he combos with Brunson, that they are a different team. Can we rely on that over a long haul of an NBA postseason? I'm not sure. So, I mean, so that's one. And then, of course, we have Karl Anthony Towns. Who's that guy going to be? I mean, it's really up to him, I think, like how far this team will go.
So with Cat, I think what I've been thinking lately is when he is kind of controlled aggression, that's the term that I would use. Where
does that include when he turns to the refs and just wants to tear their head off after an offensive foul?
That's a little bit more uncontrolled. But
okay.
So what I would sort of say is absolutely, totally fine. Fake shooting a 3, a solid drive, in control. If there's a pass out there to pass, great. If not, going up strong, but just not as reckless as potentially ending up kind of on the floor, on the ground, fast break the other way. Those are just the things that I've seen. Sort of, I would call it the good, more composed Karl Anthony Towns over the last few weeks,
Sure.
Playing basketball, which makes him kind of an all NBA type player, and it's totally there. So I root for him hard, and I think a good Cat, will be a big part of how far this Knicks team can go.
All right. With that, and all due respect to Cleveland, who is hanging around,
Yeah.
we probably do need to transfer over to our next segment, which is going to be some MLB topics. And I think a good place to start off is with ABS. We've introduced a whole new system after, decades and decades and decades of traditional baseball. What do you think about this so far?
So if I'm giving an early grade, it's an easy one for me. It's an A. In terms of just, before I get into a couple of fun stats, but the engagement factor, whether you're at a game, whether you're watching on television, even as the broadcasters sort of get involved, it's really working, for a sport that completely needs this type of
Yes, I saw
engagement.
Keith Hernandez over the weekend call something a selfish challenge.
Yeah.
It was very
Yeah.
very enjoyable.
Yeah, so here's a few. This is through April 10th, a few stats. Overall, about 4.3 challenges per game. That's been pretty standard as the testing has gone on in the minors. 54% success rate overall, but the real data is when you take it down a level. So catchers. Catchers are really the one running the show here. 60% success rate.
Makes sense.
Hitters, not as good, 48%. And the pitcher, if you're wondering, there's been 16 pitcher challenges through April 10, 7 for 16 so far.
That's actually maybe higher than I would have guessed, but because that's around the batter level. I mean, not exactly small sample size and all that, but in the neighborhood.
Right. So, to me, what this is really confirming, and it's still evolving. It's early innings, but the catcher is absolutely in control, both from kind of feeling out how the pitcher is feeling at a specific moment. Is that a good time in terms of kind of body language, that sort of thing? In addition to just overall, game leverage. Where are we at? What inning are we at? What's the score? How many are left?
And I do think that adds an element of pressure to the position. I mean, it was already a high pressure position, and now I agree they are kind of the captains of that challenge, and it just added to the list.
There's no surprise why catchers become great managers, over a long period of time, and I'm thinking this is just another example of that. I will say on the hitter side, what I've seen so far is that hitters get kind of emotional, which is totally legitimate. Hitting has never been harder in the sport than it is right now. I might mention that a little bit later. So let's say you strike out, you're not sure, but you're not happy about it. Everything tells you to tap your helmet because in the moment, that's what you do. But we've seen that the success rate is probably going to stay under 50% for the hitter.
Yeah.
Which is why, again, I think that it's the catcher that's kind of got the even keel, takes emotion out of it, and is just controlling as the game goes on. And it's, as I said, it's an A for me so far.
It's a surprising A for me as well, because I kind of had my doubts, but everything you've said is, makes a lot of sense, and I've enjoyed it.
Great. All right. So another baseball thing. This is going to be fun. We're going to get on our high horse now. There is a topic that over the years you are never afraid to find some time to talk about, and it's about kind of call it clutch hitting. But why don't you take it away with your high horse?
Thank you for this opportunity.
You're welcome.
One thing people in baseball underrate is how important it is to get the runner home from third with less than 2 outs. And I know the pushback. Don't go old school on me. Don't start worshiping productive outs. Fine, fair. Modern baseball is absolutely right to leverage and value homers, walks, and slugging. But this is not anti-analysis. This is actually one place where the analytics support the old baseball instinct. Once you get a guy to third with nobody out or 1 out, you've done the hard part. You've done the hard part of scoring. And that's, in a premium run scoring state, you've got to take advantage. You got to cash it in. And it's really important. And I find it surprising that this isn't a statistic that is talked about all the time, and it's not like up on the scoreboards when you're at games. And in fact, I'll go further. I went to do my homework on this because it is a topic that I'm passionate about, and it took me a minute or 100 to get to some data. But I dove into Fangraphs. I took the premium subscription. And we went to town with WRC Plus adjusted for certain situations. So just to level set, WRC Plus is run creation stat that's kind of adjusted for park and pitcher ERA and a bunch of other stuff. So it's kind of a pure stat. But if I also looked at it for let's isolate at bats where there's less than 2 outs and there's a guy on third.
Okay.
And then see who's doing well in that. And wow, look at this. The stars who dominate this kind of context-dependent run value: Aaron Judge, Shohei Ohtani, Juan Soto, Freddie Freeman, Bobby Witt Jr. These guys don't just put up overall big numbers, they cash in opportunities. On the other hand, guys who look good overall but lag here: Randy
Arozarena, yeah.
yeah. O'Neal Cruz, Tyler O'Neill. I don't want any part of these guys. Okay?
In that situation.
No, in general, that's my point. Because you're going to overpay and they can't come through in the clutch, I'm not interested. Now let's look at the Mets, because I always like to make it about my team.
Sure.
On the one hand, they've been doing a great job of creating pressure. Over the last 3 years, they've led the league in stolen base percentage. So they're putting the guys in the position to get home. Now the question is, are they cashing in on these chances? And the answer is, it's been challenging, and this year actually getting a little bit more challenging, because shock of shocks, who was the best at this? Jeff McNeil, which I intuitively knew. Jeff McNeil was the guy that could always get the guy home from third, and he's now on the other team.
And boy, did he like playing in Shea Stadium over the last few days.
He sure did. He sure did. Now we've got Juan Soto.
Yeah.
He's good at this, so we like that. But at the same time, we lost Alonso and Nimmo, who were among the better performers on this statistic. And as we discussed last time, those guys are gone. So who's going to pick up the slack? Bo Bichette. I was surprised. I'm not going to lie. I look at this guy's swing, and it makes me nervous. He coils like a crazy guy, but he actually has really good numbers here. He's got really good numbers here, so hope he can pick up the slack. And then Luis
Let
Robert.
me just jump in a little bit on Bichette.
Let's go.
He's pretty upfront, and he definitely attributes it to talking with his father, Dante, great player. Two-strike approach, widening stance. This has been part of his MO as a player, and it is definitely the exception rather than the rule.
Yeah.
So I think putting on the Mets fan hat for a second, I think over the course of 162, you're going to see that, and hopefully it rubs out a little bit on a couple other guys.
Yeah, we'll need him because of, again, of the loss of McNeil, Alonso, and Nimmo, who are good at this. Luis Robert Jr., last thing I'd say on this, he does come in a little bit above average on this statistic line, which also kind of surprised me. Just given his size and how hard he swings. But, if anything, I think given that he's coming from such a solid base with the additional protection in the lineup that he'll have this year compared to a pretty poor White Sox team last year, I think he could go a long way towards picking up the slack.
Yeah, and I will, just before I get into my high horse, I agree with a lot of that. I would say that, as I mentioned before, hitting is harder than ever. We'll talk maybe in another time about everything that's going on with maximized effort pitching, shaping, all of this stuff. In addition, when guys are on third, infields are in earlier in games than ever. This is kind of what the analytics speak to. It's another factor that maybe wasn't the case 5-8 years ago. And I will say, to your point before, for me, RBIs are a skill. It is not a stat just based upon how many guys you have in front of you. It absolutely is a mindset. It's a skill. So I just wanted to put that out there, because not everybody kind of would say that.
Right.
All right. My high horse is a person. It's Mike Trout. So for many people, I would say over the last 4 or 5 years, it's easy to kind of forget Mike Trout, especially for maybe youth players who are kind of coming into the game. It wouldn't be the first person that you would think of, and you wouldn't be seeing highlights, etc. Mike Trout has had a ton of injuries over the last 4 or 5 years, particularly the knee the last couple of years. 2 procedures, left knee.
Yeah.
But let's go back for a little bit. This is a no doubt first ballot Hall of Famer. Let me just say that.
I mean, yes.
So that isn't a debate. That's just a statement. Top 2 in MVP, 7 of his first 8 years. He won it 3 times, could have won it more. His WAR, wins above replacement, which is kind of the best overall stat, apples to apples, when you're looking at 87 already. That is, way up there in terms of guys that are already in the Hall of Fame. There have been 22% of players in the Hall of Fame that were first ballots. So here's going to be another one. Mm-hmm. Here's my hope for Mike Trout. Literally a week ago, he gets hit on the hand with a 95 mile per hour fastball, and tests get done, x-rays are clear. Deep breath, good. He takes 1 day off and he starts playing again. Has a tough time for a few days. However, he comes into this season running as well as he ever has. His sprint speed is up. The bat speed is still good. He's still hitting the ball hard. I hope that Mike Trout has a healthy, productive year on a team with the Angels that really needs him to be somewhat competitive in that division, which has not been the case for that team in a while.
Yes.
And I wanted to see Mike Trout back in the playoffs again. He has been in the playoffs all of one time.
The Angels owe Mike Trout a public apology for not surrounding him with enough talent during his career.
He has been such a good teammate.
Yep.
Whenever the people are saying, oh, should you be traded, just kind of putting it out there, letting him have the comment. No, he has been loyal to that team. 2014 ALDS was the one playoff series, swept by Kansas City. Of course, Kansas City the next year goes all the way. But yes, I'd like to see them playing competitive baseball in September. And if for some reason, if the stars don't align on this team, I very much want to see Mike Trout, before his career is over, in the playoffs with another team. If it happens to be the Philadelphia Phillies, because that would sort of be, the most clear answer for him being from South Jersey, I'm happy to deal with that.
Like he could go Ray Bork if I were going to bring up the NHL.
Okay.
just to say, you know what? Get me on a contender and let me just get one of these.
So that is my high horse for Mike Trout. I am rooting for him hard. You want to kick us off into a little lightning?
Yeah, let's do the lightning round. This is where we take some short takes on a couple different topics. Let's kick off this week's lightning round with a Bill Raftery shout out.
Yeah.
Which is second announcer we're going to be talking about in our 2 pods.
Yep.
Go ahead, take it away.
Thank you. So this is another person I really want to talk about, just sort of putting a bow. I know it's been a week or so since Final Four and championship, but Bill Raftery, for anybody that was watching during the tournament, especially the last couple of games, he is still an absolute gem. His infectious enthusiasm, his analysis, little sound bites when he brings them in, all the Raffisms. If you're a fan of Bill Raftery, you're just waiting for the opening tip to hear a little man-a-man. And then there are others with a kiss. Something goes off the glass. My personal favorite, a little bit of a touch foul, a nickel and dimer. And of course, onions, which came up with the big shot, which I'll get to again with Braylon Mullins. But and with all of that, happy to sprinkle in his self-deprecation, does not take himself too seriously. He'll always go back to his old coaching days. He'll needle Grant Hill. He'll needle Ian Eagle. He and Ian Eagle have known each other since the Nets days.
Did you see the clip after the Duke game, the shot of him and Grant Hill? Did you see that?
I was gonna get to that.
Okay,
so
sorry.
I'm glad that you mentioned it, because here's what happened. Braylon Mullins hits a miracle 3. Just another unbelievable moment. Ian Eagle is talking about it, trying to process what just happened. And then if you see, and it's easy to find, sort of the alternate video at that time.
Right, that's what I'm talking about.
Grant Hill and Bill Raftery are just looking in utter disbelief. And his facial expressions, he's trying to process what happened, and then take a beat, he comes up with utterly impossible. And he goes from there. But that, I'm glad you mentioned it, was just such a wonderful moment for them. and then just for him, and he has no interest in retiring whatsoever, and nor should he, because he is still at the top of his broadcasting game.
Hell yeah.
All right, so that was my lightning. I'm going to tee it up for another, a little bit of hockey, which you definitely have a strong opinion about.
Yes.
The NHL playoffs. I think you would argue that maybe this is the best of them all. Why is that?
This is the hardest trophy to win in sports. It's a cliche, but it's true. Let's compare it. The closest comp is the NBA. They both have roughly the same regular season. They both have 4 rounds that you've got to win to take the title, you know?
Yeah.
But it's a little different because in the NBA, they have these dream teams now. And so the best player or players can impose their will, right? And think about a basketball game also. Like, endless shots at the hoop. That's what you're doing all day long.
Yep.
Shoot, 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 shoot. In general, over a 7-game series, if it goes that far, the cream's going to rise to the top. In the NHL, you have teams going full tilt, but one hot goalie can erase your stars for an entire series. And, you know, you also get overtime, which extends these games even longer. And, you know, you're going to lose some overtime games over the course of a full Stanley Cup run. That is just such a devastating, you know, thing to try to come back from. There is a reason that in the NHL you are literally, not literally, but for all intents and purposes, forbidden from touching the conference trophy. You just won't. You'll go shake Bettman's hand, and you'll take a picture, and you skate away from the trophy because it's an all or nothing mentality, and it's, to me, you know, the hardest trophy to win in sports. And there's a great reason that if you do succeed, your name is etched in it for eternity.
And hasn't it been typically the case, tell me if I'm wrong, about the last year or two, where if you're literally the top points leader in the regular season, that does not usually translate, right?
That does not translate.
Yeah.
I don't have the stat in front of me, but it's something like only twice out of the last 20 years or something like that as the President's Trophy winner actually come through. It actually is one of my points of pride that when the Rangers won in '94, they were the President's Cup winner, and they took it the whole way.
Yeah, and along the same line, isn't it also true that there's been a good amount of teams kind of on the bottom getting in that then, whether it's the hot goalie or otherwise, ride it all the way through?
There have been several of those. Sometimes they're based in Florida, which is a whole other topic. But yeah, the hot goalie thing and the overtime and the 1-goal games can tilt things in a way that seems unfair, but it also leads to some of the most compelling viewership in all sports.
Got it. All right. Well, you came up with a fun last topic this week for Lightning Round. We're each going to get to play. Why don't you tee that one up for us?
Yeah, I'm going to tee this one up, and the quick premise is if we kept it's meant to be loose and unstructured, but the general idea is if you could go back in time and change one game or series, which one would you redo? What would you look for to have a do-over, to change the outcome? And I'd like to frame this a little bit before you go. I really would, because does the number 14,412 mean anything to you?
14,412.
That's the number of days it's been since one of your teams has won a championship.
That doesn't seem okay.
I did the math. I didn't even need AI. So all that to say, you have a couple things probably to choose from. So take it away.
Well, I am glad that you actually did that research. As somebody that does a fair amount of research, I appreciate that. I'll take it to one of those teams. And this is a bit of a cheat, but here we go. Going back in time, Friday, September 7, 1984, Shea Stadium. It's a Friday night. I happen to be at that game. It's 46,000 plus people. Beautiful evening. 1984 is the rookie year of Dwight Gooden, who we'll probably talk about on and off during this podcast.
I hope so.
He was one of my guys for 1,000 different reasons. On this particular night, Dwight, who was already at this point in the season cruising towards being Rookie of the Year, dominating major league hitters, he actually walked the first guy that night, Bob Dernier of the Cubs, good player, but uneventfully got out of the inning. Going through innings 2 and 3 and 4, you could sort of tell that the fastball was electric. Lord Charles, the 12-6, a little bit of control issues, but making hitters look pretty silly. It was going to be a special night. The crowd was into it. It had that kind of a feeling. We fast forward to the top of the 5th. By this point, the Mets have scored 7 runs. George Foster, I actually went back and watched some of the game. Highly recommend it. This was an NBC game of the week. Vin Scully, Joe Garagiola, what a pleasure. So the game, they walk Strawberry. Next pitch, Foster hits a 3-run home run. It's 7-0 after 3. The game is kind of no longer in doubt. Top 5, Keith Moreland, 1-2 count. Dwight Gooden throws a really good curveball off of the outside part of the plate. Moreland kind of barely touches the outside corner. 2-hopper to third.
Oh, yeah.
Ray Knight, who's actually, until he talked about it in the postgame, Ray Knight's playing a little bit off the base, understandably, because Keith Moreland, a right-handed hitter, is likely not going to get around on Dwight, who's got a little bit longer to go. Grabs it. Can't quite get a grip, can't quite get it out of his glove, doesn't throw the ball. In that moment, my 14-year-old-ish self is thinking, wow, that feels like the only thing that's going to happen tonight for Dwight Gooden. It wouldn't surprise me if there...
You know who had that discussion with you?
Yeah.
Me.
Sure.
Spoiler alert.
Yes.
We were at that one together.
Yeah. So it's kind of another reason why I just threw it out there.
Okay.
So in that moment, you're sitting there in the stadium and you're thinking, and I'm thinking, that's it. Nothing else is going to happen. The rest of that game, it gets even more out of hand. Dwight is really good. He ends up striking out 11 guys.
K corner.
The K corner, interesting. The Vin Scully in the game, if you end up going back and watch it, actually explains to the audience what the K corner is. This is kind of a new thing in 1984, which I thought was amazing. And 121 pitches. What I will say is this. This is why I brought it up. In my alternative universe, I would like to see Ray Knight actually be able just to grab that ball clearly, plant one step, and maybe throw a 1-hopper to first, because Keith Moreland, when you're reaching out for a ball like that, you're not getting a good break out of the box. This is a below average base runner. He would tell you the same thing. Maybe he gets him by half a step, maybe not.
Well, you're saying it's the ball's going to be thrown across the diamond and it's going to have to hop, right?
Probably. His momentum's going the wrong way.
I wonder who would be at first base just to make sure that catch happened.
Yeah, your guy is there.
That's a lock.
Keith Hernandez is there. I'm sure we'll be talking more about Keith on and off in the pod. But that's what I would want to see. And this is absolutely nothing against Ray Knight whatsoever. By the way, we'd only gotten him in a trade 2 weeks before that, which I completely had forgotten.
That's interesting.
That was sort of out of left field.
Such a good one. And I mean,
yeah, there you go.
What a special fan you are to have 14,412 days since your last championship and still pick a game that
we won
isn't related to the championship, but rather one of your sports heroes who truly was having, I mentioned it on the pod last week, best pitcher I ever saw in person. the doctor. Friday nights at Shea with the doctor. Woofa. So
You're up.
I'm up. Mine's a little. That's a really good one. I'm going kind of more traditional here. Same team. 2000 Subway Series. I'm gonna have to go to that. That was Mets Yankees. It wasn't just losing a title. It was losing a title to the one team you just couldn't lose to. They are already the empire. They already had the rings. They had the arrogance. They had everything. And guess what? Even if the Mets had won that series, the Yankees would still be the Mets' big brother. But we'd at least have that in our pockets. We'd at least always have that time where we went against them one-on-one in the finals, and it would just even up things a little bit psychologically. We needed it so bad. And the Mets that year, Piazza, Leiter, and co., they were so legit. But alas, it was not to be. So that was sort of the series I wish I could get back.
Game 1 could have been such a different result, by the way. I'd have to go.
I almost, sorry to cut
Go
you
ahead,
off,
go ahead.
but I will just quickly say I almost picked that as the answer to this question.
That's where I thought you were maybe headed.
Yeah. I could have. I gave that a long
Because
thought.
it's so Mets to actually have been right there, play a good game. I would have to go back to sort of every moment there, but literally in the,
Timo Perez.
a little bit of just deer in headlights moment, with the base running thing, and then the better team ended up winning. And what was it? Was it?
Oh, it was my birthday, and all of us were out, half Mets, half Yankees fans at a bar. I mean, just kill me.
Yeah. All right, I got it. All right, so that is our back in times. We're going to wrap things up where we
Take it off to the field.
take it off to the field, and you are up this week with your choice. You saw a play a few days ago. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yep. That's right. I do culture. So, tying it back to sports, there were 3 reasons I liked sports as a kid. 1, my dad took me to games early and often. 2, my friends, present company included, were huge sports fans, so it was something that we talked about every day. And the sneaky 3rd reason, my house had a lot of tension and arguments and yelling, and it's subject for another podcast. But at the same time, I did see a play this week which brings family tension and yelling to a whole new level.
Okay.
And somehow makes it laugh out loud funny. The show is called Becky Shaw. Every character in this play is magnificently flawed. They're not likable, and somehow you just can't look away. You have Susanna and Max, they're 2 step siblings around 30. Max is really kind to Susanna, who's kind of a hot mess. He helps the family financially, but beyond that, he is just an unbelievable jerk to everyone else in this world. You have a mother-daughter dynamic throughout the show, which is just fantastic. And then you have the lead character, Becky Shaw, arrives seeming to be kind of like the one super kind person, and turns out to be a little bit more complicated than that. So I would say I'd compare it to Seinfeld and Curb in a way. So you have people behaving badly, but in a way that is so sharp and funny that you stay locked in. And so with that, just my PS is to run, don't walk to see Becky Shaw. If you're in New York over the next couple months, it is a fantastic time.
Did you know beforehand kind of what you were getting into plot-wise or any of that?
We did not. It's part of a theater subscription that my wife and I have, and it's kind of hit or miss. And we just go and see what happens. So went in completely blind, which kind of made it even that much the better.
Very nice. I will say that you sort of inspired me when you said that you wanted to talk about a play, and I haven't been to a play in a very long time. But I took a little just quick look at what was playing recently, and I see that Dog Day Afternoon is on Broadway with The Bears, the TV show The Bear, which are you up on
yeah,
that?
sure.
So that's one of my shows. So Michael from The Bear, John Bernthal, and Richie Eben Moss Bachrach, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly,
Yep.
are the co-stars. And
Nice.
I made a note to try to find a date to go see it, and maybe I'll talk about that one down the road while they're still playing for the next couple
That
of months.
sounds like a good move, and I might have to end up at that play myself.
Yeah. All right, so that is actually it for today. Thank you for listening. Until the next time, I'm Peter Olchik.
And I'm Scott Greenhut. Make sure to follow S&P's Why Not Us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast player so you never miss an episode. To find out more about the show and show notes, visit our website, WNU, that's Why Not Us, .podbean.com. But for now, it's time to put this episode
In the
in the
books.
books.